Hello and welcome to another episode of The Legal Geeks. I'm here with my partner in crime, Josh Gilliland. Hi, Josh.
Hello, Jessica.
Thanks for joining us today. Today we are here to discuss another one of Joss Whedon's brilliant shows. This time we're here to discuss the awesome, the epic, the outer space adventure, Firefly. Go ahead. Sorry, Josh.
A classic from 2002.
That makes me feel old. And today specifically we're going to talk about a legal theme that actually recurs throughout Firefly. And what legal theme is that, Josh?
Okay, well, first off, there's the obvious one of people being kidnapped and experimented on, but we're not going there.
No, that's icky.
But the big one, the one that law students can appreciate, is contract law. Because throughout the entire series, it's about getting jobs. So they're forming agreements with different people to transport things or to do different jobs. Some of those might be illegal, but that's the story in Firefly. It is contract law.
All right. Well, can you give me, let's see, what's your first example of how contract law is at issue in Firefly?
Well, it starts with the second episode, well, actually the first, where they're booking passage, because that would involve contracts being formed and the agreement with Badger. But let's focus on the train robbery, which was the second episode in the series. And that dealt with forming an agreement with Adlai Niska to go out and steal some medicine. And after they do that, they realize, hey, the town that needed this medicine, everyone has this weird cough, and they're all very ill from the mining because the planet wasn't terraformed correctly. And they decide to, give the medicine back and give the money back to Niska. Now, Niska's sadistic, likes torturing and murdering his own nephew, so there are problems with that. So it's not a nice UCC case of work being performed and goods being delivered, since it involves knocking over a train. But it's a wonderful story of contract rescission, since all the work had been performed, and Malcolm Reynolds decides to put everyone back in their original position by returning the money. Now, granted, somebody has to get kicked through the Serenity's jet engine, and there's a little of that before Niska's men realize it's better for everyone if they just go with the rescission. But it's a fun little thing to look at.
The jet engine references always freak me out. There was that in the first episode of Lost, too, and that is always something that I find very disturbing. And luckily I'm never near a jet on the ground out in the open, but I think about that a lot. I do not like that.
You don't want to do that. So one of the other ones was later in the series, towards the end, Out of Gas, which is told in three different segments when you think about it, because part flashback, part taking place in real time, and then part far flashback about acquiring the ship and some of the characters getting introduced.
Right.
So there's origin qualities to it as well. And in that, it's great, since the ship's heavily damaged in a fire and they're off the beaten path, Reynolds sends out the shuttlecrafts with everyone, and he stays with the dead ship and a message out there hoping somebody comes along. We get a salvage ship, and he tells them, I need a new compression coil. And they say that they have something. And so we have, the request saying, this is what I need. We then have the other side saying, I have one, and they come aboard with the compression coil. Offer acceptance, but since this is a sci-fi show, there's a gunfight. And because realizing, hey, you are all alone here and dying, we can kill you and take your spaceship, because there's no honor among thieves. So that would be a full-blown breach, even though we don't have explicit terms of the contract on payment. But through the performance that they boarded with the compression coil in hand shows that they, there was acceptance, that they were trying to perform, and then they decided to breach. And this time the breach involved shooting the captain. And now Bad breach, very bad. Reynolds arms himself and orders them off his ship, and they leave the compression coil. So we have specific performance taking place as an equitable remedy for the breach. Now, keep in mind, Reynolds doesn't actually pay anything.
Where's the consideration in all of this?
Probably getting shot.
Is that it? You can shoot me in exchange for giving me a compression coil.
Yeah, so they were giving something up. So again, it wasn't a perfect formation because there's a gunfight involved.
Yeah.
But you get the idea of what was taking place here. The other one that actually focuses on consideration would be Shindig. And in that, Malcolm wants to get work for Badger, and so they go to this planet, and it's, a little high-end society deal, and Inara has a client there, and the client wants Inara to stay forever and ever. And at this high society ball, the captain decks the client, which then brings up a sword fight. Now, the prospect, that they want to have the agreement with, since he kind of likes the fact that they're going to get into a fight, that turns into the consideration to get the contract to transfer his cattle from one moon to the other. Now, that means the consideration is surviving the sword fight, which means somebody theoretically needs to die. Another way to look at this is it is a condition precedent to the contract performance, that not only do you have to survive in order to do this, that's what you have to look at here. So it's two ways that the duel could be. It's either consideration that you have to survive in order to win my work, and that's what you're giving up, as opposed to disappearing in the middle of the night, or it's a condition precedent to getting the work as well. So there are two ways to look at that. So again, just wonderful little issues that came out because they're traveling around in this new solar system trying to get work, which means they're forming agreements with people, which is full-blown contract law.
It is, and of course it goes to show too, so many people think, of course, that a contract has to be in writing, often drafted up by lawyers, signed by both sides, all that, and of course unless there's a statute of frauds kind of requirement, you don't need to have that. And so that in everyday, my boring existence, contracts are formed all the time, often with my children, often breached by my children, but of course even, yes, in a great epic, Western sci-fi adventure like Firefly, there are contracts that are formed all the time and often breached with much more serious consequences and much more exciting breaches.
If they did a TV show in space about transactional attorneys, it could still be super boring, super dull, because they are just forming agreements to transfer things. And with all due respect to transactional attorneys, that might not be the most exciting TV show that you could have out there.
No, although again, my thing, if you get a good soundtrack, you can make anything interesting. I'm convinced if you had the right soundtrack, even my life would seem pretty fascinating, Well,
a good montage can really liven things up.
That's right, a montage is always excellent.
So the montage of the drafting the agreement and everything could totally work.
Clips, here's this person signing, cutting and pasting from this document to this document. It's very exciting.
It really works. Totally awesome. So, but those are my quick views on contract law in Firefly. And so, yes, so again, a wonderful example for law students out there of watch your favorite sci-fi show and identify the contract issues.
That's right. Don't feel guilty. Watch Joss Whedon, and that's like practically as good as, reading the UCC. All right, well, thank you so much, Josh, for that enlightening look at the lighter side of the law in Firefly that only involves, shooting people in sword fights as opposed to kidnapping and experimenting on children, which is the darker side. So that was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Stay geeky, Jessica, and we will see you all very soon. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, Josh.